Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to show you my most memorable game so far. In 8 years of playing chess, I don't think I've ever played a game that influenced me more, that I'll remember better, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I'm facing a 2200 rated opponent. I know him, he's a great guy, great player, and we've been to many tournaments together before. He usually plays the London system, although he plays other things as well. He starts with knight f3, d5, d4, knight f6, and now g3 going for a Catalan setup. And I played the close Catalan in my previous game. In this game, I had decided to go bishop f5. The critical variation is c4, c6, takes, queen b3, queen c8. That's the critical line. But my opponent went queen b3 immediately. And I went queen b6, which is correct. c5, which is correct. Queen takes queen, a takes. And now I had the worst sequence of moves ever played since I started playing chess. I don't think I played this poorly ever, even in my first ever game. So I should say I have not engine checked the game, although I'm pretty sure where I went wrong. I have extensively analyzed it, and yeah, you will see the evaluation at the end of the video. But the worst part is, I know this position, I had it with both sides. I know the pattern which my opponent is going for. Pinned rook on a8, wants to go b4, b5. This is a very famous pattern. I've won games with this pattern several times. I've also lost to this pattern once, in 2017, I believe, to my good friend Vlatko Lovrinic. Vlatko, if you're watching, I will remember that game forever as well. So there are two ways to parry that threat. One way is to quickly connect your rooks with knight bd7, e6, bishop e7 castles, and a6. If you count the moves, well, that's far too many moves. My opponent can easily open up the bishop to attack the a6 and the b5 squares, so when b4 comes, when I play a6, if b5 comes when the bishop is open, that pawn still cannot take, because bishop takes, and my pawn structure is destroyed. An easy way to parry this, which I did know about during the game, which I was going to play a tempo, started worrying me for some reason. It doesn't work at all. Knight a6 is by far the best move. I don't need the engine to tell me that. And for some reason, I was completely blind, and I thought that e4 works. I don't know why. Obviously, it doesn't work because the knight on f3 is hanging. e4 works in similar positions sometimes. So when you go e4, in this case, I go bishop takes and the knight is just hanging. So e4 makes no sense. Just, yeah. If my bishop isn't on f5, let me just lose a tempo. So let's bring the bishop back and now go e4. Sorry. Now go e4. So now it's a bit scarier. If I take, the knight's still hanging, but this is pretty bad. And I don't know. I mean, this trade of knights has to be good for white, although black probably isn't much worse. With my bishop on f5, knight a6 is the best move. If my opponent plays bishop g2, then I have a great position. I'm going to go knight b4, maybe knight c7 if I'm scared, but I don't think I should be. And if my opponent goes e3 with the same idea of taking, I can first throw in bishop e4. And, you know, I'm just attacking the knight. I can also play knight c7. And now my knight is controlling b5. And on b4, I can safely go a6, even though the bishop is open. Instead of that, I played knight bd7. And as soon as I played knight bd7, I realized that e4 couldn't have been played. And I knew I had a worse position already, but I compounded that with 3 extraordinarily bad moves in the next 3 moves. So if you don't know this pattern, please remember it from this game. I'm never going to mess it up again. Never, ever. Whenever I face this again, I'll play the correct way. So my opponent went b4. And now I have two sensible variations. One of them is bishop takes b1, which again I was going to play a tempo. It distracts the rook, gives me time to play a6 if needed, but I can safely go g6, develop this side, and just fine. The other line is a6. And now if my opponent wants to threaten b5, they're going to have to go e3. If bishop g2 is played, then my rook is perfectly fine on a8. If e3 is played, then I can just move my rook away to c8 and everything's fine. Instead of that, I went rook c8 first. Okay, I mean, the pawn cannot be taken because the knight hangs, that's fine. But once the knight moves, what do I do now? Okay, a6, fine. But now knight b3, and the knight's threatening to come into a5. So I played another very bad move. Obviously, if the knight comes to a5, I don't have rook c7 because of bishop f4. That would just lose the game straight away. So I played rook back to a8. Instead of that, I have b6 if the knight comes to a5, which I didn't even consider. I found it during analysis. So e6, if knight a5, I just go b6. What's the problem with b6? I don't think cb6 can be played because bishop b4 is hanging and black should be winning there. cb6, bishop b4 check. And now when the king moves away, I can go, I don't know, takes. Just dreadful. Instead of that, on knight b3, I went rook a8, and on knight a5, I went rook a7. And this is a disgustingly passive position. My opponent went bishop f4, I went e6 because bishop c7 doesn't work. If bishop c7 with the idea of bishop b6, I'm winning because the b4 pawn is still hanging, so I can safely develop. Here, takes, bishop b4, king d1, and I can just go rook a8. If knight b7, again, I'm winning because of knight e4. I'm threatening knight f2. And if white does something to prevent that, then I can safely go rook b8 and pick up the pawn on b6. If knight a5, then I just take on f2. So my opponent went h3. Okay, I went bishop e7. I want to develop and prevent bishop c7 with bishop d8, g4, bishop e4. And I'm happy to make this trade because my opponent will never have an attack on the king side. And if I can keep things closed, maybe I'll be able to hold, despite my rook being on a7. So rook g1 takes, castles. Okay, bishop d3, rook e8. I want the f8 square for my knight, and I want to prepare e5. King d2, knight f8. Bishop c7, knight to d7, preventing bishop b6 because b4 still hangs. King c3. Now bishop b6 is a threat. If I don't do anything, then I lose the b7 pawn. So bishop b6, I have to take, cb6, and after rook a8, knight b7. So bishop d8. Bishop d6, bishop e7. Of course, I'd be very happy to draw. I'm worse. Bishop g3. And now bishop f6. Once again, my plan is to go e5, and my opponent has to go f4. Okay, I went g6. The idea behind g6 is both to be able to retreat my bishop to g7, but more importantly, I want to play f5, because when I play f5, my opponent will have no pawn breaks other than h5, h4, h4, h5. Rook a1, rook c8. I want to get away from the pin because my opponent was threatening f5, and if my rook stayed on e8, then f5 would just break through my position, so rook c8, getting away from the pin. Knight back to b3, rook a8. I can improve my rook finally. Rook a1, bishop d8. I want to reroute my bishop to c7, and I want to prevent knight a5. Now, my opponent played knight a5, and I was extremely happy to see that because it gives me a tempo to play f5. Takes, of course, b takes, and f5. After f5, I'm sure that this position is equal. My opponent has two ways to try and break through. One way is to double up the rooks on the b file, and when I'm awkwardly defending, sacrifice the bishop on a6. Bear that in mind. I'll be defending against that the whole game. The other way to break through is to play h4, h5, which doesn't do anything because my pieces are perfectly fine. Another thing is, with the position so closed, with no open files. My opponent's bishops are no better than my knights, and all 4 rooks are bad. So the fact that my rooks are passive doesn't mean much if there are no open files. Okay, I went king f7, rook e8, rook e3, and the next 50 or so moves, I'm just going to go through quickly. f3, knight d7, my opponent does nothing. I literally played rook a8 and back, and after f5 I offered the draw, I should say. My opponent declined. So rook c7, I'm getting ready to parry rook b4, rook b3, bishop a6, bishop f1, my opponent wants to go rook b4, rook b3, so rook e7, defending in advance, rook b4, knight b8. And now I'm defending against bishop a6, and there is no breakthrough, I can just shuffle my rooks. Let me show you what would have happened without the knight on b8. For example, knight f8, rook b3, I don't know, random move here, then my opponent can take. Sorry, not take immediately, play rook b3 and then take. So rook b3, king here, takes. And I believe I can still hold. I don't think this is a winning breakthrough, but it's an idea. So I didn't want to allow this. So I played knight b8. And rook e b3, nothing's going on, nothing's going on, nothing's going on, nothing's going on. So when my opponent stopped playing for rook b3, rook b6, rook a6, I just kept shuffling. We're shuffling, literally nothing's going on. Okay, king g3. And now I think I had a chance because I could have tried, not in this position. My opponent could have gone h4 here, but I don't think it's scary. King f2, h4, yeah. Now I had a chance to start trapping this bishop, but it never really works. Instead of waiting, I could have gone rook h8 with the idea of knight g8, but my opponent is in time to defend. If rook h1, knight g8, bishop g5, h6, h5, I'm very close to losing. If I take the bishop, I definitely am losing because of king g7, rook takes, and my whole position is falling apart. Despite being up a piece, this is very scary. My opponent goes check and picks up a knight at least. So I didn't go for that. I went rook b8, rook g3. My opponent's doing nothing. Nothing's going on. We're just shuffling. Yeah, when he doubled the rooks on the h file, I just played h5 because now if you don't play bishop a6 at an opportune moment, nothing's gonna happen. So nothing's happening. I took with the knight. Again, no pawn breaks. If you don't take on a6, then, you know, nothing's going on. So my opponent goes back to trying to break through down the b file. Rook c8, rook c7, rook b3, knight hf6, knight h5, rook b4, knight df6. Yeah, knight df6, I think, is the beginning of the end in this position because it's a tempo I cannot waste. My opponent is too quick to play rook b3, rook b6, bishop a6. At this point, I had enough time on the clock to figure that out. I was just so tired that I was tired of passively defending. Not that I could have done anything else. It was a position that I simply had to either hold or lose. But I made a mistake. There are two easy ways to draw. Or not to draw, but to prevent this only idea in the position. One of them is rook a8. And if my opponent goes rook b3, I go rook a7. And now the sacrifices on a6 simply don't work because I'm overprotecting the a pawn. For example, here, I don't know, now I can take with the knight, but I wouldn't because one of my rooks is hanging. So let's say I wait. If my opponent takes, I just take with the rook. And now I'm up a piece for nothing. The other simple way to draw is knight g3. Now knight g3 offers to take this bishop and prevent bishop a6. And the only way to save the bishop is to play bishop d3, which blocks the rook. So, I mean, easy. This will never work. Instead, I went knight df6. Rook eb3, rook e7, rook b6. And now my opponent's going to take on a6. I allowed that idea. Takes. Now, I have analyzed this during the game, and my conclusion was that this is either a draw or better for me. We're going to check with the engine. ba6, of course, rook a6, and rook d8, which I think is fine. My opponent played rook a b6, and now the easiest way to hold, which for some reason I haven't considered during the game, and this is the thing I'm most embarrassed about, was to go king e7, king d7. So king e7, if rook b7, let's say, then king d7. My king is too close. My rook is coming to a8, and there simply is no breakthrough. There is no way to make progress. If you infiltrate down the b file, you're not even winning a pawn, because I can just hold everything here. You cannot attack this pawn. You cannot attack this pawn. If you play a7, well, okay, maybe I just give up the pawn. Maybe I go king c8 so that I'm attacking your rook and we trade. So, for example, here. Maybe this isn't good. Am I losing a pawn? Am I losing a knight now? Okay, wait. I'm not actually sure. Takes, rook b7. No, yeah, I'm going king d8, because on a7... Well, what do I do? Is this Zugzwang? This looks like Zugzwang. Yeah, I'm not sure. Takes, check. Here. a7. I cannot move my rook. I cannot move either of my knights. If I go king e8, I lose to rook b8. So I'm guessing I have to go king c8. But now rook e7. Okay, wait. Takes. Okay, I'm giving the piece back. But I can throw in this, and at least my opponent has to give up a rook. And then I should be fine. Yeah, this should be fine. Now I'm winning. Yeah, okay, I'm stupid. I can force the rook to take. Okay, in any case. Instead of king e7, I played rook a8. The losing move. It's definitely losing. Rook b7, rook a7 was my idea, but now a6, and I wanted to resign here. I played on because my opponent can make a mistake, but yeah, king e8, here, and yeah, it's busted. Rook b8. I don't have rook c8 because takes, king takes, and if I go rook c7, my opponent just goes a7 and wins. That's the end of the game. And I cannot move my knight because I'm hanging mate. If I go, I don't know, knight e8, then this is mate. So I don't have rook c8, I don't have rook b7, I don't have rook a8, I cannot move either of my knights, so I have to move my king. And this is the only move. And now my opponent just comes in. And I'm basically waiting to lose with the only two moves I can make, which is king e7, king d7. And yeah, resigns. King b6. I have to take. My opponent took a b7 and I resigned. I want to congratulate my opponent. And I think this was the most inspiring game I've ever played, despite having lost in such a bad passive way. My opponent's willingness to fight, willingness to push in a, I'm sure, dead-drawn position was extraordinary. I think he should be extremely happy with this game. And yeah, I wish I could play like that. And from now on, I am going to play like that. As I said, despite having lost the game, this was Definitely the most inspiring game I've ever played. Now, let's use the engine to see just how bad I played. The engine is on. Knight a6 is the best move. We know that. Knight bd7 is fine, and I should have gone bishop takes b1, I guessed was the best move. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. It's equal. Also, a6 has to work. Yeah. Rook c8, slight advantage to white. a6, knight b3, and rook a8, already a big advantage. Knight a5, rook a7 only move. Bishop f4, e6, h3, bishop e7 is fine. Bishop e4 is fine. Okay, it's not too bad. It's +1. Plus 0.4. Rook e8, king d2, knight f8 +1 because of bishop g3 and f4. Okay. Bishop c7, knight d7, bishop d8. Yeah, this is all fine. In this position, my opponent did go f4, and I went g6. And this was a mistake. My opponent should have gone h4. Ah, h4 followed by f5. Okay, rook a1. I have to move my rook away. Knight b3. Rook a8. f5 worked. f5, bishop d8. And what's the point? Ah, h4, g5. Okay, rook a1, bishop d8, knight a5 takes, and f5. Okay, it's plus 0.8. How is this not a draw? Bishop h4, king f7. Yeah, it's a dead draw. So now let's go through the moves quickly. I will just see whether the evaluation changes, and I don't think it should. Yeah, okay, no breakthrough. No breakthrough. Nothing's going on. It's equal. No breakthrough. Wow, I was better. Minus 0.1 with h5 or h6. Okay, now it says equal again. Equal, equal, equal. Equal, equal, equal. Okay. Rook h1 with a small advantage to white. After king e3 there is no advantage. I should have gone rook h8. Okay. Yeah, but it's still just equal. 0, 0, 0, 0. 0, 0, 0, 0. After h5 it's all zeros. Knight takes 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. So nothing's going on, and then my opponent starts shuffling his pieces to pressure a6 and b7, and yeah, in accuracy, knight g3 was best. I know that knight g3 was good, but rook a8 also has to be good, followed by rook a7, yeah. Yeah, and knight df6 should be an advantage to white, yeah. Here, here, here. Takes, it's equal as expected. Rook d8 has to be fine. And now king e7 is best. Also king e8 works. Yeah. I played rook a8, which as you can see is +2. Let's just double check this position. Rook b7, king d7, a6, rook a8, rook takes, king takes, rook b7 check. King c8 is correct. But why not? Yeah, I can just give up that pawn. If rook e7, rook a6, rook e6, king d7. Yes, I found it. Okay, good. And it's equal. Instead, rook a8 is just losing. This we don't have to look at. It's definitely game over. Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely no hope here. Once again, congratulations to Ante. I wish him the best of luck in future tournaments. He more than deserved this win. I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.